Alrighty guys, welcome back to another one. Today's breakdown video is going to be on these Royal Brenneke slugs, which look like that. Pretty cool. 12 gauge, 2 3/4 inch. These are rated at, where is it? Right there, 1410 FPS. That's not screaming fast for a slug, but for an ounce and an eighth slug, that's a pretty good speed, carrying quite a bit of energy. 32 grams. And yes, I know it's pronounced Brenneke, but the box looks okay. It is kind of bland, kind of boring to be honest, but not horrible. Our specs are on top. The back of the box should show more interesting. No, it doesn't. Oh well. I've had these for 3 years, by the way. We have some warnings on this side. I think more warnings on the back in a different language. Yeah. Probably some more warnings. Yep. Well, this is not an exciting box at all. I thought the back of it would show, you know, like a trajectory thing or maybe components. No. Yeah, well, I guess let's move on. Well, to make up for a kind of boring box, the Slug does not look boring. Look at that huge brass on there. I believe that is 25mm brass. It's actually brass-plated steel. How many times can I say brass in 10 seconds? But clear hull. This is a Rio hull. Look at the head stamp. You can see Rio ammo, 12 gauge with stars. That is a Rio primer. And you can kind of see the components through here. It looks like maybe a couple nitro cards, a felt wad of some kind, another nitro card, and our Slug. With obviously a roll crimp, has a nice pointy tip on it, and it's stamped Brenneke. Looks like C and L 12 in there, and original. So original Brenneke looks like C and L 12. I mean, overall, it's got a really nice roll. It has an okay taper to it, not much of one, but I wouldn't imagine this would, you know, misfeed any gun at all. Although I have seen problems with really tall brass like this being sticky in some shotguns. You could have like a really tight chamber on a well-made like trap gun, and I haven't had this problem personally, but some people with guns like that might have ejection issues. I think the really tall brass, it looks awesome, but I'd rather have low brass any day of the week, like 8mm, 10mm. Those tend to eject and extract a little bit easier in most guns because obviously less friction. Steel expands and doesn't really contract like brass does, but that's okay. At least it looks cool, right? Anyway, the hull does have Rio's logo on there. Royal Brenneke, 1410 FPS, 12 gauge, 70mm, which is 2 3/4 inch, and right there, 2 3/4. And that's all it is. Well, I guess without further ado, let's crack this open and see how they put this together. Can't really see what's underneath the nitro cards right here, but I imagine there's a plastic gas seal in here. Using needle nose pliers as always to lift the crimp up, and I'll get back with you guys when I have it open. Guys, I'm an idiot. This is a Brenneke slug, and of course it's screwed. Well, the plastic pieces right here in the felt wad or fiber are screwed to the wad. I completely just, I guess, brain went blank there or something, because obviously I should have known. But I guess let's take this apart and look at them each individually. Alright, starting left to right here, the Slug. Obviously being a Brenneke slug, not a Foster type slug here. Although if you remove the middle stem, it might function as one. It's very likely still nose heavy, especially with the point it has. And yeah, I did kind of mangle it just a little bit, pulling it out with the pliers. These are soft lead, not hard cast. But looks pretty cool nonetheless. This style of slug is not something you commonly see around here where I live. So it's always nice to see a different slug. Other than stuff like a Federal, Remington, Winchester. Yeah, something like that. Refreshing to see every now and then, but underneath that is just a plastic disc, for lack of a better term. Just a plastic disc. Not anything really to note here, other than it says Original Brenneke 12 with an R. That's it. The reverse side of it is the same thing. Then we come to our fiber. I keep calling it felt. This is a fiber wad with a hole in it, obviously, for the screw. Below that, we just have another plastic disc with a hole in it. And pretty simple, but also pretty dang effective. These are actually really accurate. And lastly, we have the screw that holds it all together. I could go on a 10-minute detailed description of the screw, but I don't think anyone wants to hear that. So the whole thing together weighs 1.117 ounces, which is a hair below the advertised 1 1/8. Although, in my opinion, if you're saying a Slug weighs 1 1/8 ounces, or 1 ounce, or 1.5, the Slug itself should weigh that weight, not the wad or sabot it may have. The Slug itself weighs 1.004 ounces, which is basically a 1 ounce slug. But again, with the, here it is, tail wad, it's almost 1 1/8. It's just a Brenneke branded plastic gas seal. I've never seen one like this, and that hole does not go all the way through. That is where I pulled it out with a screw, but even if it did have a hole in it, it wouldn't hurt anything. If you don't know, Ballistic Products now has the XF12 gas seals out, which is basically an X12X with a hole in the middle to make it faster for commercial ammo production, is what the claim is. I imagine it has something to do with the air doesn't get compressed inside the hull, allowing the gas seal to be seated without any complications, would be my guess. But there's our gas seal. Now let's move on to the hull, and then we'll talk about the powder, because that powder is actually rather interesting if this thing would focus. Alright, so obviously this being a Rio hull, European, it's straight wall with a, well, yeah, a low plastic base wad. I'm sorry this thing keeps going in and out of focus, but just a Rio primer, again, straight wall hull. I did notice, or have noticed, that Rio clear hulls are not as clear as a Fiocchi or a Shadat, and certainly not something like an NSI hull, Noble Sport. Those are, well, some of them are translucent. I actually have one right here. You can see the difference. This is old and kind of hazy, but this is a lot more see-through than the Rio. You about can't see my finger through it, but the NSI hull, you can. So we have more European flake type powder here. I don't know what this is. I have no experience using any European powders. So someone that would be in the know, I'd like to know what this is, if it can be identified. But it's coming across as sort of flesh-colored flakes. No, in person it's actually pink. Like it's a pretty, I don't know, it's kind of dull, but it's a lot more pink in person. But let's see how much it weighs. And for a charge, we have 29.8. And once again, the powder looks cool. I think you can actually tell it's a little bit more pink than it appeared on my hand in the haul. But anyway, I guess let's slap this back together and see if I can make it look presentable. Should be able to. And we have a rare failure to go back together right. As you can see, it's a little bit toasty and melty right there. I think the top of the hull was a little bit U-shaped in a certain spot, and the roll crimp caught that and just kind of mangled it. That's okay, won't hurt anything, it'll still go off just fine. Doesn't hurt anything really, but I guess that's going to end this one here, guys. There's been a breakdown on Rio Royal Brenneke slugs, 1 1/8 ounce, 1410 FPS. Thanks for watching, we'll see you in the next one.